الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين شفيع المذنبين رحمة للعالمين مولانا وسيدنا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل
صل على محمد
محمد
وآل
وعلي
محمد.
محمد
وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين المظلومين الهداة المهديين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرض أرواحنا له الفداء ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في قرآنه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ومن يهاجر في سبيل الله يجد في الأرض مراغما كثيرا وسعة ومن يخرج من بيته مهاجرا إلى الله ورسوله ثم يدركه الموت فقد وقع أجره على الله وكان الله غفورا رحيما صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And we are now beginning our third lecture in this series of Mahe Muharram, year 1422 or 2020. And tonight is the third lecture in which I'm going to go into the topic properly. And tonight we are going to discuss the first stage of the soul, which is nafs ammara. Before we do that, I know there were a few questions yesterday and we said we would address them today. So I have just very briefly made the notes. There's one from Brother Kumail, there's one from Sister Salma, and there's one from MD Hassan. So Brother Kumail, I know what your question is, which I will address now. If Sister Salma and MD Hassan can please put their question on the chat so that I have the full thing in front of me again, then I'll really appreciate that. So this is what we'll do from now on. Whenever there are questions, we will address them in the next day's lecture, inshallah. So please keep putting your questions. And I will request maybe if Brother Abbas Kazmi, Abbas bhai, if you can help me to like record these questions, copy and paste them, and then put them on the chat the next day, that'll be really, really helpful, inshallah. So number one, yesterday we discussed the issue that we have currently in the community worldwide, in the Shia world, which is sometimes we get confused with whom to follow and which authority to refer to in our religious matters and religious affairs. Unfortunately, with the internet and with social media and the easy access to everything, one of the disadvantages of that is that every scholar or every person or every researcher, they have the ability to take the mimbar and give lectures and things like this. Unfortunately, not every one of them is fully qualified, or rather, I would say that they are not, they don't have that kind of ethics of responsibility, the akhlaq of being responsible and mas'ul on what they say. So the question from Brother Kumail yesterday was that we see that there are some hawzas in the West and even online we can learn things. How do we know their validity or their strength or their weakness? This is a very, very important question. Yesterday I made a comment that we have two outstanding places in the world where for centuries we have amazing levels of study, research, scholarship, and these are very, very much highly respected. They are the Cambridge and Oxford of the Shia world. They are Najaf and Qum. These are very, very well-established, very old, full of ethics, full of research, full of resources, libraries, books, teachers, scholars, maraji. These are the two places that I would recommend. However, if someone is not able to go there and they have to resort to online learning or home-based learning or learning outside of the Middle East, then what do we do? Well, the answer to this is very simple. If you find that a Western Hausa or an online Hausa is connected to Najaf and Qom, and they have the same kind of methodology, they have the same kind of rigorous process, they have the same kind of ethics, then Alhamdulillah, we don't have an issue, because they are simply recreating as best as they can that environment of Najaf and Qom. Of course, it cannot be the same because of the environment of Najaf and Qom, but we can have some confidence that yes, okay, this is reliable. Where you have a place that doesn't conform to that, that doesn't hold those ethics and that methodology, then I would say you have to be very careful. And if possible, please do not put yourself into any compromising position, because you don't want to learn something where the scholarship is weak and the ethics are not there. Unfortunately, we see sometimes that these other places, they don't have that same level of ethics and research and rigorous methods. Islam is not mine or yours. It's not our father's religion. This is religion of Ahlul Bayt. So we have to be very careful, very, very careful with Islam. We have to be very responsible with what we are saying, and we have to make sure that we learn things in the proper way from the proper people. So this was the response to Brother Kumail's question. The next question is from Sister Salma. Many youth today have doubts in their faith. They ask that if there is a creator, then why does he allow evil, injustice to take place in the world? What answer is one supposed to give? Yeah, this is a very good question. And this comes up many times when we discuss Allah's attributes, that why do we see evil and injustice in the world when we have a merciful Lord and we have a merciful God? This requires a little bit of time, so I'll just take a few minutes to answer this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created this world not as a heaven. This world is not a utopia in that sense. This world is not free of evil and suffering. This world is not free of injustice. Okay? This world has been created with a specific objective. Okay? What is the objective? The objective is that we clean our souls and we return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We be good people, we serve the Creator, we serve the creation, and we go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a better position than when we entered. Now, someone may say, yes, but all this injustice and pain and suffering, how do we make peace with this? Well, you see, to have this world with this objective of getting closer to Allah, of progressing in our life, to have this objective, there is one fundamental thing that is required, and that is free will. Okay? So Allah has to give free will for the objective to be realized. All right? Without free will, there's no point in this world. You can just cancel this world and there's no point in living, because without free will, what are you achieving? You're not achieving anything. Without free will, if Allah makes us do everything, then we are not achieving anything ourselves, and the whole objective of the world is gone. So when Allah gives free will, we have to understand and we have to accept that with free will, some people will use the free will in a good way to do good things. Some people will use it to do evil and injustice. This is a natural consequence of this world, the way the world has been made, the way the world operates. So on one hand, I say, I want to be free. Leave me free. I want to make my own decisions. I want to make my own choices. Unfortunately, let's say I make a bad choice. I choose to do injustice to someone. I choose to oppress someone. Well, that is a consequence of my free will. So you can't have both ways. You can't say we want free will, but then we don't want any evil. Because with free will, some people will do evil. So that's why we see evil and suffering and injustice in the world. We see tyrants, we see oppressors, we see bad rulers, we see bad leaders, and this leads to lots of conflict and evil and injustice. But it has to be there for us to have that free will and to be better people. Okay? So someone will ask, is this world perfect? The answer to that question is this world is perfect for the purpose which it was created. It's not heaven. It's not a place where everyone is pure and everyone is in bliss and everyone is in blessing. No, it's a physical world, and with physical world comes challenges. So we have a physical body. So I say, for example, according to the question of Sister Salma, I say, no, why is there illness? Why is there disease? Why are people dying? Why are people losing their loved ones? But we know that I'm a physical body. And as a physical body, I can get ill. That's a consequence of having a physical world and a physical body. We know that if I'm driving my car and another car hits me, I will be injured. But that's physical because it's a physical world. So most of the what we call suffering or injustice in the world is a natural consequence of the nature of the world. It's not Allah coming and making people ill or making people poor or making, most of these things are done by human beings. Now, what about natural disasters and natural things? We cannot attribute those to human beings. We cannot say earthquakes are from human beings or volcano eruptions are from human beings. Here, again, it comes down to the way the world is made, the way the world is a physical world, the way the world has been structured by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in its physical nature, it will produce these things. So with the physical world, we get these physical phenomena. Someone may say, yes, but Allah can put an end to those. He can choose not to do an earthquake. Yes, he could. But then where's the test? Where are we being tested? Where are we being pushed to our limits? How can we show our goodness? So in a school or a university, you want good grades and you want a good job and you want a nice life. But you say, I want all these things, but I don't want an exam. People will laugh. They'll say, what are you talking about? If there's no exam, if there's no test, how will we know who is qualified and who is not? I want to become a doctor. I want to operate on people. But I don't want to go through the tests and the trials and the medical exams and all of the training and everything. But I want to become a doctor. They'll say, I'm sorry, you can't, because you have to prove yourself as worthy. So Allah is saying exactly the same thing. He's saying you're in this world, you're a physical being, there will be many challenges to you. These are all tests. Can you go through life and still emerge as a successful human being? So when we say Allah allows evil and injustice, it's because he has a bigger purpose in mind. The way the school principal allows stress and tension and anxiety at the time of exam, why does he allow it? Does he want to see his students stressed and anxious? He doesn't want to, but he wants to see who has got the metal and the bottle to go through these things and emerge successful on the other side. So I hope I've answered that question. And in fact, Quran, if you look at Surah Taha, verse number 117, Allah makes this very clear. He says, فَقُلْنَا يَا آدَمْ إِنَّ هَذَا عَدُوٌ لَكَ وَلِزَوْجِكَ. Allah says to Nabi Adam, referring to Shaitan, he says, this is an enemy of yours and your wife's. فَلَا يُخْرِجَنَّكُمَا. Do not allow him to make you leave this place, this garden, مِنَ الْجَنَّةِ فَتَشْقَى. Otherwise you will suffer and you'll become miserable. So this world is a world of misery and suffering. Most of the time, most of the people don't suffer. But sometimes people will suffer and they will become miserable. That's natural part of this world and the world's nature. So I hope I've answered that question, sister. The other question, which I'm going to go to now, is from MD Hassan. The major monotheistic faiths all spawned within the Middle East, the areas from Egypt to Palestine to Arabia. Major books of Allah were revealed within these regions. How do we explain to children why the divine message was not revealed in other parts of the world? The coincidence of monotheism having its roots in around the same geographical area. Yeah. This is also an interesting question. We have how many prophets? We have 124,000 prophets. And how many of them do we know? We know around 24 or 25 in the Holy Quran, and we know another 10 from Ahadith. So around 35 we know. 35 out of 124,000. So we only know a small amount of the prophets and the books and the revelations and the messages and the scriptures and the religions. We only know a very small amount. We don't know a lot. So it's definitely very, very likely that, of course, there were prophets sent to all parts of the world, because Quran says there's never been any community except that we revealed a message to it and we sent a prophet to it. So definitely South America, Europe, Asia, Australasia, they all had messengers and messages, but we haven't been told about it because the Quran can only be so big. It cannot be multiple volumes, a huge book. Allah says, no, I will give you a snapshot. I will tell you the major things that you need to know. And because Quran was revealed in Arabia, Allah describes the Arabian and Middle Eastern events and prophets. But that shouldn't make us think that there was no other religion in any other parts of the world. I personally feel that it's very likely that all of the major world religions have some kind of divine link. But of course, over time, they've been corrupted. So whether we see Indian religions, whether we see Far Asian religions, whether we see South American customs and tribes, North American, Indian, Red Indian customs and tribes, there's nothing to say that these places did not receive divine revelation and messengers. But over time, they have been corrupted, just like Ahl Kitab have been corrupted over time. So Allah gives us some information, but not all. So just bear this in mind, that out of 124,000 prophets, we only know of 35 by name. The rest of them, we don't even know. We don't have a list of prophets. We don't know where they went. But Quran says every place was given a prophet and given a message, and no one will be left without this message. So I hope, again, MD Hassan, this answers your question. If it doesn't, and Sister Salma, if it doesn't, and you have follow-ups, please put them on the chat, and inshallah we can look into it in more detail tomorrow. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli. So yesterday, very quickly, we will recap that we discussed many things. We discussed the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We discussed the process of Islam and the analogy of a journey, that we are going through a journey. We come from Allah and to Allah we will return. We discussed the signs of God, that sometimes they are obvious, but because we are distracted with the world and our technology and all these other things around us, sometimes we can miss those signs, although they are there in front of us all the time. It's very sad that we miss them. And then we discussed a scholar, a true scholar, how do we identify? And then we discussed briefly about death, and I asked you to reflect upon what state you are in currently, because if you don't know your starting point, you cannot get to your end point. And then we had this dua from the Holy Prophet, which I have transliterated into English. I'm going to put it on the chat just now. This is his dua at the beginning of the year, where he says, Allahumma anta ilahul qadim, wa hadhihi sanatun jadida. You are the eternal Lord, and this is the new year. And I ask you for three things: isma min ash-shaytan, protection from shaitan, wal quwwa ala hadhihi nafs al-ammara, and strength upon this nafs ammara, wal ishtighal bima yuqarribuni ilayk, and make me busy, give me those things in my life that get me closer to you. So, in today's lecture, when we entered this world, when we were born, we had, if you like, a kind of score. How good am I? Or how close to God am I? So we had no sins when we were born. We were either at neutral level, so zero, or because of our parents' good deeds and what our mothers did in the womb and what our fathers did before conception, maybe we had a score like +5 or +10. As we go through this life, we then progress and digress. We can go higher, we can go +15, +20, +30. I'm a +30 human being. Or with our issues, with our selfishness, with our sins, we can digress. Maybe we become -5, -10, -15. So the critical point is that I want to make is that we have to think, what score will I have when I leave this world? What kind of human being will I be? Because there are two possibilities here. Either we can leave this world in a very mediocre way, okay? Or we can digress so much, we can go -5, -10, -20, -50, so much we can become minus human being that instead of human being now, we will look like human beings, but we will be really animals. Our nature will not be human anymore, it will be animalistic, and it will be beastie. So we can digress and we can leave this world as animals. We look like humans, we behave like humans, we speak like humans, but our reality, our inner reality, is that we are animalistic. It can go the other way as well. We can progress +10 human, +20 human, +50 human. We can get to such a level that we look like humans, but really we are more like angels. So we are becoming angelic. So these are the two extremes. We have the animalistic side, we have the angelic side. Both possibilities exist in each and every human being. Each and every human being can digress to animal, or he can progress to angel. We wish and we pray and we ask Allah by the haqq of Sayyid al-Shuhada that we can progress and become like angels. We want to be on that side of the spectrum, but it's possible that we can become animalistic, and this is our discussion today. Now, many people, they forget the nafs when they think about spirituality. They always blame everything on shaitan, okay? And shaitan is definitely blameworthy. But shaitan, the way my teacher used to say this, shaitan is an active participant in misguiding human beings. So he tries, with all his tricks and all his whispers, he tries to misguide human beings. But guess what? You can defeat shaitan. You can make him tired. You can make him disappointed. You can do many things and shaitan is out. But there is one thing which you cannot ever get rid of, and you cannot ever guarantee that this thing is defeated, and that is your nafs, your soul. Okay? This is why it's very critical. What we are discussing is very, very critical to our future and the future of our next generation. So nafs is that thing. Shaitan can be defeated, but not nafs. Nafs has to always be under control. It's always there with you. It's never separated from you. In fact, it is you. Okay? So it's always there and you are always in constant danger. One thing which I would like to give as humble advice, brothers and sisters, never ever in your life should you ever think or say that Alhamdulillah, now I have achieved spirituality. Now I have achieved control on the nafs. Now I've done enough. Now I've reached Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whenever anyone says these words, then they are shutting the doors of spirituality upon them. These are the worst words to say when you want to progress in spirituality towards Allah. Never think you have done enough and never think you are safe. At all times, be vigilant and be very careful. I want to give you a quick story. There was a student of Shaykh Ansari, rahmatullah alayh. Shaykh Ansari is one of our greatest, most fantastic ulama. If you have time, do some research and look into the life of Shaykh Ansari. Shaykh Ansari was a great teacher. He had a number of students. One of his students narrates the following. He says, one day I was in the class of Shaykh Ansari, my teacher, and he was teaching us about shaitan. And when I went after the class in the evening, after I did everything, I went to sleep, I had a dream that night. And in my dream, I saw shaitan. Shaitan, the way I saw him, is that he was standing and he had lots of kind of ropes. And there were different ropes and different strings. Some ropes were very thin, some ropes were very thick and strong, and he was constantly pulling and pushing and doing all these things to these ropes. So I asked him, I said, tell me, who are you? He said, I'm Shaitan. And I said, what are you doing? And he said, well, this is how I control people. I give this one a little nudge here, I give this one a pull here, I send this one in this direction, I send this one in this direction. This is how I influence and control people. So the student of Shaykh Ansari said, why are some thin and some are thick? Why are some very weak and some are very strong? He said, well, this depends on the strength of the person and his soul. Those who have very weak souls and they are very easy to control, I need only the weak ropes. They're very easy. I send them where I want to send them. I make them do things. I influence them. I whisper to them. They're very easy. I don't need to spend much time on them. But these bigger ropes, these thick ropes, these are where I put more of my time and energy. These people are strong. So I need to come up with strong tactics and strong strategies to push them into the wrong direction and to make them sin and to make them doubt. So the student asked a question that I think all of us would have asked. The student says, well, show me my rope. I bet my rope is very thick and strong, because the student was thinking, I've got a very strong soul, so Shaitan must have a very strong rope for me. Shaitan said to him, brother, for you, I don't need any rope. You don't have any rope. You yourself are doing everything that I want you to do without me even telling you. Your nafs itself is all over the place. I don't need to push you around. Your nafs itself is the thing that is bothering you. So this tells us a lot. This dream tells us a lot. It tells us that Shaitan is one active participant, but the nafs is really the dangerous thing that we have to deal with. Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salam, he says in a hadith, A'ada aduwika nafsuka allati bayna jambayk. Imam Ja'far Sadiq says, your worst enemy is your nafs, which is between your two sides. In other words, your nafs, like your heart or your soul, which is between your two sides. This is your worst enemy. Quran says, Alam a'had ilaykum ya bani Adama an la ta'budu shaitan innahu lakum aduwwun mubin. That have we not told you, O children of Adam, not to obey Shaitan? He indeed is your manifest and open enemy. Quran says Shaitan is the enemy. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, yes, Shaitan is your enemy, but a bigger enemy than Shaitan is your own self. So, we come on to the first level of the soul. The soul's first level, which is the worst level, is called nafs ammara. Now, how do we get this name of nafs ammara? This comes from the Quran itself, Surah Yusuf. Inna nafsa la ammaratum bisu' illa ma rahima rabbi. Nabi Yusuf says, when after he has the incident where he was tried, when the queen of the time tried to tempt him into a sinful act, he says, Inna nafsa la ammaratum bisu'. Surely the soul orders and commands and compels towards evil. Because the soul, it has one side of it, the Ammara side, which constantly pushes you into evil and disobedience. Now, what is Ammara? And let's talk about the characteristics. Nafs Ammara is animalistic. It's beastly. Look at the lives of animals and what kind of lives do they lead? They lead a life of always thinking about food, sleep, sex, mating, lying around, dominating, protecting their area, protecting their home or that patch of land that they are in. They like to fight with others. They like to dominate others. This is the life of an animal. Okay, they sleep a lot. They eat all the time. They're always thinking about, okay, what meal will we have today? Let's kill an animal. Nafs Ammara is like this. It enjoys excesses in everything. Excess of sex, excessive food, excessive sleep, excessive pleasure, right? Many a times in our lives, wherever we are in the world, I'm sure it's no different where you are, because we have a level of material comfort. Every day we are looking for pleasure. Okay, how can I enjoy myself today? What will I do today to make myself happy? What will I do to enjoy myself? What kind of pleasures can I indulge in? This could be, if it's taken too far, it could be signs of Nafs Ammara. Nafs Ammara is especially prone to attack teenagers, boys and girls, because they are in that time where bodies are changing, hormones are changing, bodily needs are increasing, sexual appetites are increasing. You can often see how many teenagers, unfortunately, they enter into the domain of Nafs Ammara. I'll give you a quick example. A few years ago, I read a study. This is a study that was done in Holland, in Europe. And, you know, in Europe, we have a big issue. I'm not sure about where you live, but I'm guessing there's an issue there as well. The issue is child sexual grooming. So children, unfortunately, is very sad, but children throughout the world are made to go in front of a webcam on the internet, and then adults, they pay, and then the children have to do things in front of the webcam, very indecent things. And this is a big business, and this is like all over the world, and Europe has a big problem. So in Holland, they did a study. What they did was they made a fake avatar. They made a fake computer-generated girl, okay? They made her look like a 10-year-old girl. They made her look like a Filipino girl, and they put her on the internet. They made a fake business to see who would approach her, and then they would get those details and they would go and arrest that person. Right. So when they put this girl up there, the girl was a fake, synthetic, computer-generated girl. They gave her a name, they gave her a personality, they started to make her interact, they could control her. And the person behind the keyboard was an adult, he was a police officer. So the police officer would write, and he would see these different people coming in to look at this girl and make her do indecent things, and then they would go and arrest that person. In 8 weeks, after launching this fake girl and this fake business, in 8 weeks, they said a minimum of 1,000 men approached this fake girl for indecent acts. Why do I say minimum? Because they never expected it to reach that level, and so their counting system could not keep up. So they say minimum 1,000. Beyond 1,000, we don't know. But minimum 1,000 men approached this girl, this fake girl, for indecent acts. Who were these men? Were they mentally ill? Were they unemployed? Were they, ex-convicts from prisons? No, these were professionals and so-called honorable people with their own families. This is nafse ammara. No one is safe. Never ever think of yourself as safe from nafse ammara. So deep down, even though, even in our own community, we could come to mosque, we could come to social gatherings, we could gather with families, and we look very nice. We wear very nice clothes. We talk very nice. We say mashallah, subhanallah, and all these things. Very good. It's all good. But deep down, you never know who could be in nafs ammara. Now, it's not for us to judge anyone else. We have to judge ourselves. So we have to all ask ourselves a question: how close or how far am I from nafs ammara? In some people, it changes from person to person, the way nafs ammara manifests. For some people, it's anger. They're like an animal because they're always angry. In some people, it's violence. In some people, it's selfishness. In some people, it's carnal desires. In some people, it's food. In some people, it's power. In some people, it's, domination over others. It could be different things for different people. So it's not one size fits all. But the key thing is that it keeps you in this animalistic and bestial way of thinking and behaving. Maybe you show one thing, but then behind the scenes, it could be nafs ammara. So it's very, very difficult. The key thing about nafs ammara is excess. Number 2, absence of conscience. And number 3, absence of feeling guilt. It's like they don't realize what they're doing is wrong. It's like this has now become a lifestyle. Parents out there with teenagers, you will maybe understand what I'm trying to say, okay? Because that age is a very difficult age. So there's no active conscience. There's a lack of guilt. There are these things going on, and these are the hallmarks of nafs ammara. So now how do we get out of this nafs ammara? Well, yesterday I gave you 2 practical tips. This is now the 3rd practical tip. To move out of nafs ammara into the next stage of the nafs, which is called nafs lawama, which is what we're going to discuss tomorrow. To move out of one stage into the other, it's done by 2 things. Number 1, analysis of the self, which is what we discussed yesterday. And number 2, self-accounting. So you analyze yourself. You say to yourself, hang on a second. I just heard these things in a lecture. Where am I? Am I like this? Do I indulge in excess of these things? Do I love my pleasures and my luxury so much that I'm almost like a animalistic? I'm just addicted to these things. Do I have a conscience? Do I feel guilt? Do I feel sorry for when I do something wrong? This is the first stage, self-analysis. And then we have self-accounting. Self-accounting is an extremely important area. So I'm going to leave that for tomorrow. We're going to look at self-accounting in more depth. There are 3 stages of self-accounting. So this is your homework. I want you to look into these 3 terms, which I'm going to put here on the chat. And tomorrow, I want you to come with your answers and let me know what you think about these 3 terms. This is what we're going to discuss tomorrow, and then we're going to move on to nafs lawama, which is the next stage of the nafs. Inshallah ta'ala. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma
salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. Imam Hussein alayhi salam's shahadat and martyrdom leaves a pain and a sorrow on each and every heart, on each and every human. We take this opportunity of giving our condolences to Ahlul Bayt, to the Imam of the time, and especially to Janab Fatima. Oh, Bibi Fatima, we want you to write our names in the list of those who cried for Hussein. We want you to write our names on the list of those who loved Hussein. And may you please do our intercession and shafa'ah on the day of resurrection. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, when the word spreads throughout the Muslim world that Hussein has left his hometown of Medina and he has come to Makkah, and that he has refused to give the bay'at to Yazid, the accursed, many messages and letters begin to come to Makkah to Imam Hussein. Of these, the most of them were from Kufa. Why Kufa? Because Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam had his seat of rulership in Kufa. The people of Kufa knew Imam Ali alayhi salam very well. They knew Ahlul Bayt very well. They were acquainted with Ahlul Bayt, so therefore they wrote the most letters to Imam, and they said to him, "Oh Imam, do not worry. You have left Medina. You are not going to pay allegiance to Yazid. Come to us. We need you. Come and lead us." So the letters came to Imam Hussein. They expressed their loyalty. Imam had a number of people around him, great, great personalities and great, great people. He had Hazrat Ali Akbar. He had Hazrat Qasim. He had, of course, Abul Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam. He also had a very special personality, and that is the personality we are going to remember today, and that is Aqil. Aqil was the brother of Imam Ali, and his son was Muslim. This is the personality we are going to remember today, Muslim ibn Aqil. Aqil was the brother of Imam Ali. He was the son of Hazrat Abu Talib. Aqil himself had 4 sons and 2 daughters. His 4 sons were Talib, Aqil, Ja'far, Ali. These were the sons of Hazrat Abu Talib. So the eldest was Talib, then there was Aqil, then there was Ja'far ibn Abu Talib, and then there was Imam Ali alayhi salam. And he had 2 daughters, Jumana and Fakhita. Now, Ja'far, the son of Hazrat Abu Talib, was known for his generosity. This was his famous thing. Talib, the son of Hazrat Abu Talib, this is why he's called Abu Talib, father of Talib. Talib was known for his honor. These were fantastic personalities. And of course, Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, well, what is he known for? He's known for everything. He was the best in everything. He was the best in honor, in generosity, in taqwa, in worship, in knowledge, in wisdom, and everything. Imam Ali alayhi salam needs a separate category. We cannot put him in the category with other people. He is a separate human being. He's unsurpassed in everything. Now, what about Aqil? The son of Hazrat Abu Talib, Aqil. What was he known for? He was known for something like knowledge of genealogy. He was a very expert person in the tribes and lineages of the Arabs. The Arabs had a very complicated and very detailed genealogy and their tribes, and each tribe was known with a different attribute. People would come to Aqil and they would ask him that, I want to go into business with someone. Who should I go into business with? Which tribe would be good? Someone would come and say, I want to marry someone. Which tribe would be good? This is why when Imam Ali alayhi salam wanted to have a son to help Aba Abdullah in Karbala, he married Bibi Ummul Baneen on the advice of Aqil. Aqil told him that if you want this kind of son, then this tribe is very good. Take a lady from this tribe. Because that tribe had very valiant warriors, and therefore he married Janabi Ummul Baneen, and they produced Hazrat Abbas, and of course we know the bravery and the magnificent nature of Hazrat Abbas. Now, Aqil had 3 sons. One was called Abdul Rahman, one was called Ja'far, and one was called Muslim, Muslim ibn Aqil. Muslim is a very, very special personality. Janabi Muslim was born in 3 AH, the same year as Imam Hassan alayhi salam, and 1 year before Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And we can say that not only were they cousins, they were actually best friends. They grew up together, they played together, they knew one another, they trusted one another. And from the day he was born, he was praised by Rasulullah. Rasulullah in one hadith says to Aqil, he says, "O Aqil, inni uhibbuka hubbain." I love you with two loves. Hubban laka. One love is that I love you. And the other love is because my وَإِنَّ وَلَدَكَ مَقْتُولٌ. The other love is that your son will become killed by giving support to my son Hussein. And the highest of Allah's angels will pray on his janazah, on his body, when he is killed. So I love you for two reasons. Number one, I love you. The second reason is I love you for your child who will help my son Hussein. You know, the Holy Prophet used to call Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein his sons, not his grandsons. They were known as the sons of Rasulullah, as that honor and closeness of bond with the Holy Prophet. Janab Muslim ibn Aqil was known as Safir Hussein, the messenger of Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein alayhi salam knew of the personalities in Kufa, and he was confident. When he received the messages of the people of Kufa, he was confident. He knew there were people in Kufa such as Hazrat Hani, Habib ibn Mazahir, Muslim ibn Awsaja, Maytham Tammar, Mukhtar Thaqafi, and some reports say that he received how many letters? 12,000. That's not a small number. 12,000 letters of support means he had to go and answer them. Some people say, why did Imam Hussein go to Karbala if he knew he was being killed? This is a ridiculous question. Imam knows everything that's going to happen to a certain extent. So the question is not why did he go to Karbala? He was never going to Karbala. He was going to Kufa to answer the people who had pledged support. Does it make sense that an Imam who is here to guide humanity and to support people, if someone requests him that, oh Imam, come, we are ready for you, not one person, but 12,000 people, how can you refuse? He has to operate on that level of apparent knowledge. So he says, okay, I received 12,000 letters, I will proceed to Kufa. These people in Kufa, this Muslim ibn Awsaja, Maytham Tammar, they were outstanding people. They had fought in Jamal, they had fought in Siffin, they had fought in Nahrawan. They were trained by Amirul Mu'mineen himself. Yazid at this time was in trouble. He knew Imam Hussein has left Medina, he refused Bay'at. This word is spreading throughout the Muslim world. People are all questioning, why has Abu Abdullah not given Bay'at to Yazid? At the same time, Kufa is full of the Shias of Amirul Mu'mineen. They are sending messages of support to Imam Hussein. I need to do something. So he began to panic. So what did he do? He chose the most despicable and disgusting person. I won't go into his history. Ibn Ziyad has a very bad history. He chooses Ibn Ziyad. He says, you go and be my governor in Kufa. The person who is there at the moment, kick him out, tell him to resign and to leave, you go and take his place. Ibn Ziyad was a ruthless person known for his cruelty. During this time, Imam says to Hazrat Muslim, he says, Muslim, I want you to go and represent me in Kufa. I want you to go there, look at the situation, find out what's happening and report back. And Imam writes a letter and gives it to Muslim, Hazrat Muslim, and says, take this with you to Kufa and show the people. Imam writes in that letter, قَدْ بَعَثْتُ إِلَيْكُمْ أَخِي وَابْنَ عَمِّي وَثِقَتِي مِنْ أَهْلِ بَيْتِي. These are amazing words that Imam uses to describe his beloved brother Muslim. He says, I'm sending to you Akhi, my brother, Wabna Ammi. He's my cousin. وَثِقَتِي, and I trust him completely. Min ahli bayti, and he's from my Ahlul Bayt. When Muslim goes to Kufa, he first sees immense support for Imam. He stays at the house of Mukhtar. He is visited by Hani, by Muslim ibn Awsaja. These people are not just soldiers, but they are also pious people. They are trained by Amirul Mu'mineen. So what would you expect? These were outstanding individuals. Then Ibn Ziyad comes. Ibn Ziyad does something very clever. He comes disguised as Imam Hussein. So he covers his face so no one recognizes him. He wears clothes similar to what Imam Hussein would wear. He wears colors similar to what Imam Hussein would wear. And people think it's Imam Hussein. So when he comes, they think it's Imam. They welcome him. So he immediately begins to remember who were the people that came to support Imam. Then he goes to rest at his friend's place called Ma'akil. Ma'akil was his spy. He says, Ma'akil, tell me what's going on. Ma'akil tells him everything. He says, Imam has not arrived yet. But Muslim, the cousin of Imam Hussein, is here. And Muslim seems to be plotting something against you. Ma'akil makes some inquiries and he finds out that Muslim is indeed hiding in the house of these other strong personalities, and he reports this to Ibn Ziyad. Ibn Ziyad begins to rage a war on all of the supporters of Imam Hussein in Kufa. He executes thousands of people who had written the letters. He imprisons Maysam Tammar and Mukhtar al-Thaqafi, these great personalities. He grabs them, he imprisons them. Other people who were weak, he pays them off, he bribes them. Habib and Muslim, these two amazing individuals, Habib ibn Madahir and Muslim ibn Aqil, they escaped from this terror of Ibn Ziyad. But now Muslim is in a difficult position. He has no supporters. They have either been killed, imprisoned, or paid off. He has no supporters. And he knows that behind him there is Imam Hussein alayhi salam, who is coming on his way to Kufa. Muslim enters Masjid Kufa. He begins the prayer. They say that at one point there were many people who were behind the Muslim. Then he looks behind at one point and he sees these many people are now 30. At the end of his prayers, he looks behind and he sees those 30 people are now 3. As he leaves the mosque after the prayer, as he turns and leaves the mosque, he sees that there is no one with him. Those many, many thousand of people who had pledged their support to Imam Hussein have now, for one reason or the other, turned their back on him and they have left Muslim alone in Kufa. Now Muslim is walking through Kufa like a stranger in the city where his uncle Amirul Mu'mineen was the ruler. It is hot, it is difficult. Muslim ibn Aqil alayhi salam, he's thirsty, he needs water. All the doors are shut. Everyone is scared. Ibn Ziyad is terrorizing everybody. He sits down by a house. The lady who owned the house comes out and asks him, what are you doing? He asks her, he says, can I have some water? She says, 1 second, let me call my mother. She calls her mother. The mother is a little bit older. The mother says to the daughter, you look upset. What's the matter? The daughter begins to cry. The mother says, what's wrong? He says, there's a man on our door. He's sitting and he's very thirsty. But he said one line which has made me cry and upset. The mother says, what did he say? She said, he said, I am a stranger and I have no one here for me anymore. The mother comes and says, who are you? Why are you sitting here? He says, my name is Muslim. She says, Muslim? Which Muslim? He says, I am Muslim son of Aqil. She says, which Aqil are you talking about? He says, Aqil ibn Abi Talib. So the woman looks at him and says, so you are telling me you are the nephew of my Mawla and my beloved Amirul Mu'mineen. She has love for Ahlul Bayt. She calls Muslim. She says, you stay here. Your life is not safe. Be our guest. He stays the night, part of the night in her home. That woman says that this man, when he stayed in my house, the whole night he was in sujood, reciting Quran. Unfortunately, in her house, there was someone who was in the favor of Ibn Ziyad, and he goes and reports to Ibn Ziyad. And he says, you know that Muslim you are looking for? He is in my house. So Ibn Ziyad dispatches a whole group of people with swords and spears, and he says, go and get Muslim and bring him here. When Muslim sees the crowd of people, the soldiers and the security of Ibn Ziyad coming towards the house, he begins to cry, but not for himself. Muslim does not cry for himself. He begins to cry and weep and says, oh Aba Abdullah, you are coming here to Kufa. You sent me to check out the situation. Oh Aba Abdullah, now it is too late. How will I get these messages to you about the reality of this place? The soldiers of Ibn Ziyad begin to attack Janab Muslim. Some hit him with stones, some hit him with spears, some strike at him with swords. They throw rocks at him. They hit him with metal bars. They hit him so much. Eventually, Muslim is captured and dragged along the streets of Kufa, and he is brought to Ibn Ziyad. When he is brought to Ibn Ziyad, someone says to Muslim, this is your Amir. Address him with respect. He says, no, Amiri Husaynun. My leader is none other than Hussein. Ibn Ziyad takes Muslim and says, Muslim, you have committed treason. You will now be executed. But do you have any final wishes? Tell us. Janab Muslim says, I have three things. If you allow me, you do three things for me. Number one, there is a debt that I owe someone. Please sell my saddle and my sword and pay my debt back. Ibn Ziyad said, yes, we will do this for you. Muslim says, the second is, give me an Islamic burial. I do not want my body dragged in the streets. And the third one is, allow me to send one message to my brother, Aba Abdullah. Allow me to send him a warning about the people of Kufa. They said, we will allow you the first one, but not the other two. What did they do to Janab Muslim? They took him to the top of the building. He cried out, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Then he was beheaded, and then he was thrown down, and then his body was dragged in the streets. Two people at that moment were leaving Kufa after they saw this, and they began to ride towards Makkah. When they met Imam Hussein alayhi salam, as Imam Hussein was coming towards Kufa, they were going towards Makkah. When they met Aba Abdullah asked them, tell me about my brother Muslim. How is he? They said, oh, Aba Abdullah, it's better you don't ask us. Your brother has been beheaded and his body was dragged through the streets. Imam Hussein turns to Bibi Zainab and tells her, bring me Hamida, the daughter of Muslim. Hamida is brought towards Aba Abdullah. Aba Abdullah takes her, he hugs her, he puts his hand upon her head, he makes her sit on his lap. She looks to him and says, Aba Abdullah, have I become an orphan today? Imam Hussein asks her, why do you say this? She says, I have seen that you always treat the orphans like this, with this kind of kindness. Sakina bintul Hussein comes, she hugs Hamida, she consoles Hamida. I ask you, O Azadaran of Imam Hussein, who was there for Janab Sakina when she became an orphan? There were no hugs, there were no cuddles, there was no kindness for her. Her earrings were pulled and her face was beaten. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. مات يا حسين.